Hi, this is Jack Stanley, and this is 2.5 Minutes of History. You know, one of the wars that we were involved in, and this country has been involved in a lot of wars, was the Spanish-American War. You know, a war you probably don't hear about very often. But it all took place because we were upset about the various situations in Cuba. We didn't like what the Spanish were doing to the Cubans. We didn't like the atrocities and other things like that. And we gave warning saying you have to be better about it. And so what we did, President McKinley sent a second-rate battleship down to Cuba and put it in Havana Harbor as a representative of the United States, watching over things. Well, what happened? The Maine was there for a while and then suddenly blew up. Now, of course, we got all excited about it, and Teddy Roosevelt was screaming, and we said it was a mine that was put in there to sink the Maine. Most probably, that is not true. Most probably, it was the design of the ship, which was somewhat problematic. It was very poorly designed and had powder magazines not too far from where there were fires in the boiler. So that's what probably happened. Another thing that's kind of interesting is that after the war, which was very quick after us invading Cuba, we acquired a lot of territory. In fact, we went from being just the United States to becoming an empire. We acquired Cuba, Puerto Rico, Guam, and the Philippines. But the Philippines turned into another war, which we'll have to talk about later. But one of the mementos, and you have to understand the star of the Spanish-American War in many respects, was the USS Maine. Remember the Maine was the big call. And here's a little memento. It's kind of interesting. This says, "Remember the Maine." And it's a kind of a candy dish that was very popular for many years after the Spanish-American War. And, you know, you could have a little fun, just like with the ship got blown up, you could kind of take the top off and get out a candy. But this is kind of a clever little piece, which is a memento of the Spanish-American War. A splendid little war, as John Hay once said. But it was basically, as I mentioned, a war of somewhat conquest in which we went from being the United States to an empire. And that's about 2.5 minutes of history.